Buckle up, it's a ride. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Strong Female Athlete Podcast. I am here solo once again, and today is one of those feels episodes. I love talking about training and science and periodization and ACL injuries and speed development, but today is a different episode where I'm going to talk about the hard times that your daughter experiences in her youth sports journey. And parents, let me tell you, youth sports is a roller coaster. I can guarantee that somewhere along the way, something is going to go wrong. There's going to be several oh shit moments. You're going to be putting out fires all the time. It's going to get a little bit crazy. So how do you handle the insanity that is this journey? This is truly the adventure of a lifetime as a sports parent and as a young athlete. The good times are so great, but then when the bad times happen, it is like the world is ending. The apocalypse has arrived and you see your girl not confident. You see your girl maybe getting sidelined, or all of a sudden she went from a starter to a bench player and you're like, how did we get here? And some of these moments can be very jarring and you're disoriented. You don't know what to do. You see your daughter upset, and it's really hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I get it. I've been through these moments as well. And when I was a young athlete, it was hard for me to understand why this all was happening. Why, when something so bad, whether it was not getting playing time or not making a team or going through a rut where I just wasn't confident, I didn't understand why it was happening. And it took me till years later to finally get it and look back and be like, wow, that all makes sense now. And I was talking with my mom about this the other week that, man, there were some crazy times in my journey growing up. And let me tell you, I had a fatal mistake when I was age 6. It was probably the first mistake of my career. It set the tone for the rest of my career. And little did I know at age 6 that I would be making hundreds of more mistakes in my journey. I stopped playing soccer competitively in my mid-20s. So that is a long period of time. That is over 2 decades of playing the game. And of course, within that, there's going to be some rock bottom times. It is never smooth sailing. So you guys will find this funny. When I was age 6, I scored my first goal. I dribbled down the field with speed, with confidence. I was blowing by like 5 defenders and I shot the ball so hard. You saw the net swish back. It's one of the greatest feelings as a kid, seeing the net just move because your shot was so hard. I jumped with joy. I was elated. And then I realized that no one was clapping. Guys, I scored an own goal at age 6. That was my first goal. And when I realized no one was clapping, my teammates weren't coming over to celebrate with me, that's when I realized, oh shoot, I scored on my own goal. I was going the wrong way. That's how just ridiculous 6-year-old soccer is. You just don't really know where you're going. I was still just learning the game, and I just was excited every time I got the ball, and I just wanted to dribble and shoot. It didn't matter if it was my own goal. I just went for it. So that was the first time I made a big mistake. And I look back at it now with my mom, and we just laugh. We're like, my mom was like, well, who would have thought you would have been the Johns Hopkins University soccer leading goal scorer after making that mistake at age 6? Guys, it didn't matter. None of it freaking mattered. The only thing that mattered about all these mistakes when I was growing up young was I learned from them. I learned how to, of course, finish on my own goal. And that set the tone for the rest of my career. I became a goal scorer and leading goal scorer at Johns Hopkins University, breaking records, leading goal scorer every season, actually. It's so crazy. You look back on some of these mistakes and you're like, it's just laughable at this point. So mistakes are going to happen. I can't tell you guys how many times I've also missed penalty kicks I never was a good penalty kick taker. I missed a PK in college soccer in the conference semifinal, but it didn't matter because we won the final the next day. So again, these moments that are hard, they're so fleeting. They don't last. And while in the moment it's frustrating when something devastating happens, I promise this too shall pass. And I know maybe if your daughter is going through a hard time right now, or she made a huge mistake in a recent game, or she hasn't been doing well in the past several games, or maybe she has an injury or some sort of setback, or maybe she lost her starting spot. And it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel because you take on your daughter's emotions. You get sad when she's sad. When you see her crying and losing confidence, it's just gut-wrenching for you as a parent. But when my mom and I have talked about these moments, we went through these too, but we realize now looking back that they were so temporary. They were literally a blip in time. And the only thing that we can really find comfort in this whole youth sports journey is that the only constant is change. Things are going to change at the bat of an eyelash. One day, something devastating happens, but then the next day, maybe your daughter has the greatest game of all time, or your team wins that championship, or she breaks into the starting lineup, or she makes that higher level team. A lot of these rock bottom moments sometimes turn into the greatest comeback stories of all time. And I always love giving the example of Brandi Chastain, former US women's national team player, who literally has the greatest comeback story of all time. And we can also find comfort in knowing that even professional athletes, the best in the game, make mistakes, but even they turn it around too. And so can your daughter. So Brandi Chastain, she scored an own goal. And I remember watching it on TV. My heart ached for her. I was so young watching this and I couldn't believe it happened. And let alone it happening in front of a stadium packed of thousands of fans. I couldn't believe how she felt after that. I mean, I felt for her. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. And then Brianna Scurry, the goalkeeper at the time, couldn't believe she missed the pass back. So yeah, it was so crazy to see. But what was even crazier was what Brandi Chastain did to turn that moment around. And you guys all know how this Cinderella story ends. She was the last penalty kick taker against China in the 1999 Women's World Cup. And she scored the game-winning PK for them to be the World Cup champions. And this was one of the most defining moments in the history of women's soccer, was Brandi Chastain scoring that penalty kick, taking her shirt off, and just that celebration defined how strong her comeback was in that tournament. She had some rocky moments, but she came back. And again, those bad moments, they were temporary. They passed. And she came out on top. But I always tell my athletes, when you have good moments too, like these ecstatic types of moments, like a Brandi Chastain scoring a winning penalty kick, when you have those types of really high moments, enjoy them. You better enjoy them because you can bet it's going to change again and something else will come up and you're going to have another challenge in the next week or two, maybe even sooner. You're going to have to deal with some other hurdles. So it's on to the next. And that's just the process that is youth sports. It's a roller coaster. And parents, I know this sounds hard, but try to be stoic with it. Recognize that everything's temporary. Your daughter will always be okay. She will get a lesson from anything that happens. And honestly, the bad times that happened in my career, I don't really remember too much of them. I don't harp on them now because I'm in my mid-30s. So none of it really matters now. But what does matter now is, and what I'm using today in the work that I do and just in the real world, is how to have resiliency, how to not be phased when challenges come up. I can tell you, as a strength and conditioning coach in today's youth sports world, that is insane. I have to put out fires every single week. I have my own challenges that I have to face, but I embrace them and I enjoy them. because I learned so much from growing up as a young athlete how to get over them and how to either come back with resiliency or taking better responsibility for my actions, or maybe training harder or training intentionally, taking action and learning how to advocate for myself. The lessons that are learned in youth sports are so valuable. So just remember that when those failures and adversities happen for your daughter, she does need them. She does need them to mold her strength, because I can tell you the real world is cutthroat. The job market's crazy right now, whatever industry you're entering in. AI is about to take over and take your daughter's job. So I'm just kidding. I don't want to scare you guys. But seriously, the world's scary out there. It's not perfect. It's not smooth sailing. And your daughter has to adapt. And youth sports teach you how to adapt. So I know as parents, you want your daughter to feel comfortable and happy and you want to fix the problem for her, but don't. Don't always try and fix. Let her get the lesson, whether it's one day from now, 1 month from now, or 10 years from now. There are so many lessons I didn't learn until I retired from soccer, and now I finally understood why they all happened. So, the meniscus tear that ended my semi pro career in my mid 20s, a year after I went through rehab, I finally understood why I went through that. That's when I got more passionate about being a strength and conditioning coach and really digging into new research and new training methods. Because, yes, I was doing strength training during that time, but a lot of the methods were very outdated during that time. And we didn't have as much good research back then for sport performance and injury prevention. So I got really passionate when I was on bed rest and on crutches after my meniscus tear. I got really passionate about actually researching new training methods to help girls minimize these types of injuries. I went back and got my master's in exercise science. So even though I was upset at first after the surgery and couldn't really get out of bed, I used that time to read literature, do more research, and better understand the mechanism of injuries and all the components that go into it. So at the time, I thought I could just get away with strength training. The more I looked into it while I was on bed rest, I looked at nutrition, I looked at load management, and all these other pieces that a lot of people were ignoring back then. So that's the lesson I learned from going through that injury. The injury sucked. Did I cry a lot? Oh my gosh, every single day. But eventually I got over it. I decided to take action. So I don't know if I would be as deep into the work that I'm doing now if I hadn't gone through that injury, which is crazy to think about. So the good times, when they happen, enjoy them. And I look back fondly on all the good times I had with my team. And honestly, guys, those are the ones that stick out the most. When your daughter hangs up the cleats one day and she stops playing soccer, you can look back fondly on all the good memories, and those are going to be in your highlight reel. Those are going to be the ones that stick with you the longest and you remember the most. I know I look back on so many, like traveling to Europe with my college soccer team, coaching in Brazil, and all the cool places that soccer took me, all the amazing friendships I got out of soccer. Several of my Hopkins teammates were in my wedding a few years ago. Just all the fun times with the team, the cool traditions we did on the bus, singing songs, having pasta dinners, all these fun things. That's what sports are about. They're about building relationships, connections, and learning life lessons. So look back on the good times fondly, and then look back on the bad times gratefully. I want you guys to really think back about maybe something bad that happened to your daughter recently, or maybe even a few years ago, and really think about the lesson that was learned from it, because I can guarantee you something came out of it, whether it was a lesson of resiliency or adaptability, or maybe she went to a different team and is much happier now and she's thriving and she's developing. I know a lot of girls who have been cut from teams, but then when they got to a lower level team, they were extremely happy and they loved the coach. They still became better players. And now they see the light at the end of the tunnel. When those bad times do come, pause, take a breath, and be grateful. Be grateful for the eventual lesson that this is going to teach your daughter. Don't try and bubble wrap her from the world. because the world is ruthless out there. Know that it's preparing her and molding her and getting her ready for maybe not getting promoted one day, or maybe not being the first to get offered a job, or maybe dealing with a crappy colleague or a crazy boss. She has to learn how to handle herself and deal with the world. You can only bubble wrap so much until she goes out into the wild and she has to defend herself and advocate for herself. So keep that in mind, parents. Again, just coming back to all the bad moments in my career, so many, guys, so many. I mean, so many just stupid injuries. It's hard to go through sports unscathed. Sports are rough, even if you prepare and do your training. I broke my arm. I collided heads with a girl in a high school game and busted my eyebrow open. There was blood streaming down my face, and I had to go to the hospital and get 30 stitches. I collided heads literally a month later, and on the top of my head busted open, and I had to go to the hospital and get stapled. So there were a lot of oh shit moments. And of course, my parents were like, this is crazy to see our daughter going through all this. I broke my 5th metatarsal on my left foot twice just from a stupid ankle roll. So I would be out for 6 to 8 weeks. And this was all when I was in middle school going through my growth spurt, just stupid minor injuries. And then I had a stress fracture in my back from overusing, playing 2 sports in one season. So I learned my lesson during that one. But another interesting lesson I learned during that stress fracture was how to fuel properly and how to have nutrition that is nutrient dense and supports my bones. Because I can tell you guys, I was not having enough calcium. I was not having enough vitamin D. So yes, the injury was from overuse, but could it have been prevented more had I been fueling properly and having foods that made my bones stronger? Probably. So I learned about nutrition during that time, which was also really cool. And now today, I'm very passionate about performance nutrition for my athletes, but also for my own health. So I learned that lesson too, and I take it into today. So everything has its lesson. If I can give you some hope, parents, it will all be okay. And remember, it does matter, but it doesn't at the same time. And my mom and I, my dad too, we just laugh now. We're like, wow, that was the adventure of a lifetime. And I think what's cool about the bad times too is they provide that contrast for the good times. Because if there were no bad times, we wouldn't really know what good feels like, right? So there needs to be some sort of contrast. When something bad happens and then something good happens a week later, that you're so excited when something good happens. You're like, wow, I worked for this. I deserve this. And it's more fulfilling when those good things happen because you overcome something. You come out of the bad time and you realize, oh, this is what's on the other side. This is what's on the other side of maybe working harder, training more intentionally, doing better, learning my lesson. This here, up at this level, yes. So you do need those bad times to appreciate the good more. That's the richness of youth sports. And I know I'm preaching to the choir and it sounds so cliche, but the bad makes the good just so much more enjoyable and fulfilling. So guys, I really hope this helps put things into perspective. Again, if you see your daughter struggling, just remember this too shall pass. It's going to eventually be just such a valuable lesson for her in the future when she's older. So just be there to support, continue encouraging, but don't fix, don't micromanage, just support. Try and be stoic with it. I know it's hard, but trust me, as someone who's reflected on my youth sports career with my own parents, we are just like, that was the adventure of a lifetime. All the ups, all the downs, the whole thing was incredible. The whole thing was totally worth it. So keep that in mind because your daughter will grow up one day and it will end. And that will be probably the saddest day of your life, maybe her life, because it's years of going to tournaments, going to practices, going to showcases, traveling with her to games. It's fun. That's fun. But when it ends, and that's it. So enjoy all of it while you can. All right. Thank you guys. And I will see you next time.